Happy Pentecost, everyone. I am so excited for this feast of Pentecost. I am here in my garden recording a sermon for Pentecost, and I have framed it in such a way that you only see the really tidy and neat rows of my garden. You see vegetables growing back there, and doesn't it look nice how they're all in a row and tidy? Well, if I just turn a little bit, you're going to see parts of my garden that are a little messier. Like that old part of the tree house that we're using to fence off where we don't want the chickens to go. And there's an old mailbox a friend gave me for my garden tools. And then if we look over there, it gets even messier. Right there, we've got the compost pile and some chicken doo-doo. So that is a pretty messy part indeed. Part of my garden is tidy, and a part of my garden is messy. Now, when I was a little girl, I played in the mud all the time. I loved it. I used to go out and play in the mud, and I enjoyed thoroughly getting dirty. I didn't really worry much about getting dirt under my fingernails. I didn't really worry much about my clothes and if they got really dirty and who would wash them and how that would work out. I didn't think about that a lot. I just had fun playing in the garden. I had fun in the mud, and I made up games to play, and I planted things. I would pick little dandelions, and then I would replant them, which, is kind of still like what I like to do today. Being in that messy garden as a little girl, I was really being creative and having a lot of fun and not worrying about the consequences of the holes I dug or the dirt on my clothes. As we get older, we want to tidy things up more. We want a little more order. We perhaps don't get out there and get as dirty as we did when we were children. Now, the reason I share this with you on Pentecost is because I think it's something like what the Holy Spirit is doing. The Holy Spirit, I think of the Holy Spirit as feminine, as a she, because the ancient word in Hebrew is ruach, that spirit that moved over the waters and the chaos. At creation is ruach, a feminine word in Hebrew. And in Greek, the word for spirit is pneuma, which is also feminine, like a pneumatic drill. That's the word pneuma, that breath or spirit. And so I think of the Holy Spirit as a she. And the Holy Spirit has been around for millennia. The Holy Spirit is God. And the Holy Spirit is one way that we understand God. And this aspect of God has always been around, like all aspects of God. And the Holy Spirit has been through crisis and mess and disaster and things falling apart over and over and over again. So as we go through this time in our own lives where it's gotten kind of messy and we are really craving order or return to normal, we know that we are guided by a Holy Spirit who has gone through all of these things with other people, with other communities, throughout the history of human experience. And I find some comfort in that, to know that as I go through something that's totally new and different for me, it's not totally new and different to God, to the Holy Spirit. And so what I want us to remember is that the Holy Spirit, having gone through all of this before, offers us a kind of guidance and even a kind of peace in the midst of the mess. That we can just experience it and trust in God at the same time, and have an urge to tidy and find order, and also some acceptance of the mess we're in. It's hard to resist that urge to tidy up, to tame what is wild, to take what looks like a mess and turn it right again. But I urge us to spend a little time this Pentecost in experiencing the mess, letting all that comes with that just be a part of our experience, to pause and wonder and feel, and to allow our spirits to fill up with the Holy Spirit, to fill up with the wonder of what's going on around us, to appreciate God in all that is unknown and untamed and wild and messy, because we ultimately trust the Holy Spirit to be with us, to guide us through all that. On Sunday mornings, when we gather in our spaces for Holy Communion on, all those Sundays before this COVID-19 stay-at-home time, before we were suspending worship services, we would often have a beautiful hymn playing and people coming up for Holy Communion, putting their hands together. And sometimes those hands would even be messy hands, especially if they were children with markers all over their hands. And sometimes those hands would reach out as tears run down the faces of people, and that's messy too. People would be coming and reaching out for the presence of God, with tears coming down their faces and marker all over their hands, and people singing and maybe even clapping. And all of that could be a little chaotic and messy, and God was present. God is still present. God is absolutely still present with us, even if we're messy and feeling like we need to tidy up and put things in order, and that things are a little too wild or untamed. God is still present, and we can still reach out for God's love in this moment, even as we are not gathering. But without that service on Sundays, I think it's a little challenging for some of us to have a spiritual outlet or an emotional outlet for all that we carry, for all the disorder or messiness, all that we want to lift up to God. And so I want to encourage you to find ways to share this mess that we're in and your particular experience of it with other people, with faithful friends, and with God. To share the mess as you're experiencing it without even trying to figure out what it means. We're such a competent community of people that are, a lot of high achievers in our congregation. And so I want to say to you that don't try to figure it all out before you share it. It's really important that you find someone to talk to who can listen to what you're experiencing. And then you can listen to them and what they're experiencing. Sharing those messes certainly helps us to discover where the Holy Spirit is guiding us. Whenever we're in crisis or experiencing grief or trauma or stress, we long even more for order and safety. And so this is an especially trying time for us. It's really important to share our stories, to share our messes, to celebrate any victories, any time that we experience the presence of that Spirit guiding us, to celebrate that together. And so I invite you to celebrate what it is you know to be true about how the Holy Spirit is guiding you through this. And I invite you to continue trusting in that freedom that the Holy Spirit offers us, that freedom to be in this moment of mess and just get a little dirty in it, to get some under your fingernails and not worry if it will come out, to get some in your clothes and not worry if the wash will take it out. I invite you to be fully present to however you're experiencing God, even in the mess, especially in the mess, and to give yourself time to fall apart here and there, and to claim that as part of what is holy in this mess. The Holy Spirit has guided all people who were willing to be guided through times that were really messy, times as messy as this, and maybe even more so. We can trust that the Holy Spirit is with us to guide us as well. The Holy Spirit knows messes, and so we welcome the Holy Spirit into our mess.